Hello everyone, hi.
In 1934, a 22-year-old aspiring writer hitchhiked 2,000 miles across America with one goal: to ask Ernest Hemingway how to become a great writer. After an unlikely meeting, Hemingway handed him a handwritten list of 14 novels and 2 short stories that would later become known as the Hemingway List.
And that's what we're talking about today. So many of you may know that my wife and I are spending time in Austria for a few months, and Maria and I thought this would be a great idea to collaborate on the Hemingway List. So we're going to be exploring the list and some of the books that he thought that every aspiring novelist should read.
Thanks for the invitation. I love your office.
Thank you. I had a great decorator. We each chose 3 books that we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, what's your first pick, Adam?
Okay, so my first pick, the one that jumped out at me, was Dostoevsky's The Brothers Karamazov. And I found this really strange because Hemingway actually says multiple places that he is not a fan of Dostoevsky's writing style.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt strangely confirmed because I do have favorite novelists who I don't think are great writers.
Oh my god.
But who are really compelling and moving. And that's exactly the way it was for Hemingway. He said once, "I've been wondering about Dostoevsky. How can a man write so badly, so unbelievably badly, and make you feel so deeply?" And it's very clear from the other comments that he made that what he really valued in Dostoevsky was the way his writing could make you feel. It was the pathos, the great feeling. And it's surprising because this is not how Hemingway achieves great feeling in his works. You know, he's the great master of the understatement or litotes. And I feel like Dostoevsky really goes overboard sometimes, but to great effect.
That really reminds me of another book that will be on the list, Buddenbrooks, because I'm loving Thomas Mann's writing style. Or I don't know, I love the book, but I'm not highlighting a lot of sentences.
Interesting.
There is not, and I usually do that all the time. It's like, wow, that's a beautiful sentence, that's so well written, I love that word, blah, blah, blah. And I don't have that with him. But he's such a great writer. I mean, he's a Nobel Prize for Literature, the German writer, but it's like you don't really see that in one sentence. It's you, but the story is so great. Yeah. I don't know.
I feel like some writers are good craftspeople, and some are just straight up magicians. Where on a craft level, it shouldn't work, but somehow it does.
Yeah.
And for Hemingway, Dostoevsky was that kind of writer.
Yeah, just a bit unconventional, maybe.
Exactly.
That there's not, I don't know, one way to be a good writer or something.
Exactly. And I find that's a really important thing to take away from this list if you are an aspiring novelist, is that there is no recipe. In fact, if you try to follow a template, you're probably just going to be derivative. Yeah. And you really need to rely on your own voice, which Hemingway did and Dostoevsky did. I do have an excerpt to read from this that I thought it made me think of Hemingway. And it's that famous moment when the character Alyosha walks out of the chapel when the priest is reading near the body of his spiritual mentor. And he walks out under the starlight and has this grand experience. And it's the moment when he basically decides to leave the monastery. And I'm reading from the translation, Paviar and Volokhonsky. Exactly. Yeah. I have a friend of mine who reads the Russian novels in the original who recommended this version.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, I'm wrong then. Oh, the version. Right. I thought the pronunciation. He told you about the pronunciation.
No, I frequently have problems of pronouncing words, especially when I'm in the heat of the camera spotlight. So, but no, that's exactly right. And so he says this is the superlative translation according to him, and it really is beautiful. What was he weeping for? Oh, in his rapture he wept even for the stars that shone on him from the abyss. And he was not ashamed of this ecstasy. It was as if the threads from all those innumerable worlds of God all came together in his soul, and it was trembling all over, touching other worlds. He wanted to forgive everyone and for everything, and to ask forgiveness, not for himself, but for all and for everything, as others are asking for me, rang again in his soul. But with each moment he felt clearly and most tangibly something as firm and immovable as this heavenly vault descended into his soul, some sort of idea, as it were, was coming to reign in his mind, now for the whole of his life and unto ages of ages. He fell to the earth a weak youth and rose up a fighter, steadfast for the rest of his life. And it's that moment that I think really of Hemingway. And he knew it and felt it suddenly in that very moment of his ecstasy. Never in all his life would Alyosha forget that moment. Someone visited my soul in that hour, he would say afterwards, with firm belief in his words. 3 days later, he left the monastery, which was also in accordance with the words of his late elder. And this is a big moment of pathos, of deep feeling. I feel like this is probably one of those moments that really got Hemingway. Fell to the earth a weak youth, rose up a fighter. So it's an interesting addition, but there it is. And I think it does have something to teach writers, there's no one way to communicate great feeling. So what about you? What's your first pick?
My first pick is the book that I'm currently reading, Buddenbrooks by Thomas Mann. It came out in 1901, and Thomas Mann was just an extremely disciplined writer. So he wrote from, I think, 8 in the morning until 12 every day.
Wow.
No one was allowed to visit him in his office, and somehow you can feel that. Like, there's so much structure in his novels. He really thinks it through. Like, I once had a course about another novel of his, The Magic Mountain, and we talked about like chapter length and build up, and there's like all this, skeleton under it that is really, I don't know, it's like crack cocaine to literature students.
Right,
You're
yeah.
like, oh my god, I need to find it out. And it's, but then within that structure and within that discipline, he plays. And he doesn't take himself too seriously, and there's so much irony, and that's such a wonderful combination. And what I really like the most about Thomas Mann's writing is that he never moralizes.
Yeah,
he brings up all of these big questions of life, but then he looks at them from every angle through his characters, and really he's just like serving it up all to the reader on a silver plate, but then he doesn't tell you how to think. He stays undecided. And I think that's like the kind of realism in the novel that is really against the like romantic idea of like good and bad, and I don't know, and what I took from that is that maybe Hemingway chose this book because there's a certain objectivity a writer needs. You can't, I think if you're just writing a novel because you're trying to convince people of like a certain viewpoint, it's like, I don't know, I never like these novels. It feels like someone's really pushing something onto me. That's what I think why it might be on the list.
That's fantastic. Would you classify Thomas Mann as an early modernist?
Yeah. We talked about the transition into modernism within the book in the car the other
right.
day.
Yeah, exactly.
Would be way too much to go into now. But Thomas Mann was only 26 when this book came out, and he got the Nobel Prize for Literature for it, whereas usually a writer's complete work, like he's nominated or allotted the prize for the body of work, and here it was just for Buddenbrooks.
Just one book.
Yeah.
At 26, too.
Yeah.
Makes you want to throw in the towel.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Yeah, and people really call it the great German novel. Someone commented that it's like, it's the great German novel the way Moby Dick is the great American novel. And it's about the slow decline of a wealthy merchant family in the 19th century. You follow them over 4 generations. And it's a lot about, I don't know, I feel like pride and manipulation and how fragile success is.
Oh my gosh. I'm sold. I've got to read this book now.
Yeah, well, if you're looking for a translation. So I'm reading it in German now, so I haven't actually, read the English, but I really liked John E. Wood's translation of The Magic Mountain, and I would trust him with Buddenbrooks as well. And it's actually great. I don't know, I was surprised that when I mentioned the book, a lot of my viewers were like, oh yeah, Buddenbrooks, and love Buddenbrooks, and want to read it or have read it, because it hasn't been translated for a very long time. I've written it down here. Yeah, it took 23 years for the first English translation. Just one more note about the translation. I would not want to be that translator because Thomas Mann is mixing like High German and then Plattdeutsch, which is like a German accent from the north that to me almost sounds Dutch. It's like I don't know, like an old Frisian German mix or something. And then there's also French words into it, so I'm like, how do you even translate that into English? And they can't. Actually, I've prepared a quote to read, and it's not in any kind of dialect or something in the English, so you lose a little bit there. Should I read German and English?
Oh, yeah. Let's hear the German.
Okay, German first? Or
Yeah, let's hear the German first.
Okay. Praktische Ideale. Naja. Der alte Buddenbrook spielte während einer Pause, die er seinen Kinnladen gönnte, mit seiner goldenen Dose. Praktische Ideale. Nee, ich bin da gar nicht für. Er verfiel vor Verdruss in den Dialekt. Da schießen nun die gewerblichen Anstalten und die technischen Anstalten und die Handelsschulen aus der Erde und das Gymnasium und die klassische Bildung sind plötzlich betiesen. Und alle Welt denkt an nichts als Bergwerke und Industrie und Geld verdienen. And then the English is practical ideals. Well, yes. Old Herr Buddenbrook played with his gold snuff box as he gave his jaws brief respite. Practical ideals? No, that's not something for me. So irritated he was, he slipped into a dialect. The technical schools and trade schools and commercial colleges are shooting up like mushrooms, and the high schools with their classical education are suddenly bêtises, and everyone's thinking of nothing but mines and industry and earning money. So yeah, I think in conclusion, it's maybe that like sustained rigor that spoke to Hemingway from Thomas Mann's novels, like to just, I don't know, like I start the book and I have to look up the characters because I cannot keep it straight, I find reading really exhausting most of the time, especially starting a classic like that. I'm like, wow, I need the family tree and this and that. And I'm like, how does he keep it straight in his mind? And like all these plot lines and how the people sound differently. So to conceptualize a novel like that, that's really, Thomas Mann is a masterclass in that. And when you read it, it's like, I can't believe these people don't actually exist. One last thing I just thought was really fitting for this video. I think Thomas Mann once said that a writer is simply someone for whom writing is more difficult than for other people.
Oh, that's good. That is good.
It is good.
Yeah. That's in a strange, paradoxical way kind of encouraging for aspiring novelists, I feel, right?
That's true. That's true.
But in another way, not.
Well, Adam, what's your second pick?
My second pick was Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. At first, I just kind of was reading it and I was reading the list, I saw it on there, I didn't think twice, but then I got to thinking, why this book? Why this book by Emily Bronte? Why not one by Charlotte Bronte?
Why not Charlotte?
Why not Jane Eyre? Right, that's the question. I believe it's the only English novel on the list. So if you're going to have just one English novel on the list, why have this one? Why not Jane Austen, for example? Or why not George Eliot even? And so the why nots were really getting me. And I think putting it in context with some of the other works he includes here, it might be the fact that there's a little bit of like gothic, kind of magical realism, the specter of it at least, in Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights, which for the past years had a bit of a moment. Dostoevsky also has that philosophical or psychological realism that I think really appealed to Hemingway. Hemingway, I guess you couldn't really call a realist. He was more of a modernist who I feel as though he drew from the realist styles. You know, one of the books on here we're not talking about is Henry James's The American, and Henry James, also a pioneer of psychological realism.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that's maybe what Hemingway liked.
Yeah, I have a bit of a theory about what's stringing all the books together, but I'll talk about it in my third.
Oh my gosh! I want to hear it. I want to hear it. Well, one of the things that's really interesting about the list is that it shows that the character of a reader is sometimes different from the writing that reader produces. Mm-hmm. Like his taste, he doesn't seem to me to be the same person as a reader and a writer.
Yeah,
right?
true. Because why does he like Wuthering Heights?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a great
book,
but mm-hmm. it's not the sort of thing that I thought Hemingway would go for.
Yeah, but maybe that's it. Like reading a big variety of books maybe made him more confident, or made him discover his style, because he really, I mean, you know, there's a Russian novel, there's a German novel, there's a French novel. He did at least read across language borders.
Exactly. And maybe that's why he likes it so much, because in the English tradition, this book is an outlier in terms of the early Victorian novel, because it's got some of those Gothic elements of the late 18th century, but it doesn't quite really fit in with the realism. Mm-hmm. And there was something I feel like that was a little strange about it that appealed to him, probably because his taste was trained on world literature and not just English literature.
Yeah, maybe. Cool.
I do have a beautiful passage, one of my favorite passages from Wuthering Heights. It comes right at the end. No spoilers, though, so no worries if you haven't read it on YouTube. Okay, so this is the very last paragraph. I lingered round them under that benign sky, watched the moths fluttering among the heath and harebells, listened to the soft wind breathing through the grass, and wondered how anyone could ever imagine unquiet slumbers for the sleepers in that quiet earth.
Ooh.
It's like, yeah, the chiasmas she's got at the end with unquiet slumbers, sleepers, quiet. I feel like she's such a great crafts.
That's good.
Person.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So okay, what's your second pick?
I picked Madame Bovary, of course, by Gustave Flaubert. It's one of my favorite books of all time. With Madame Bovary, I have the opposite experience reading it as with Buddenbrooks, compared to Buddenbrooks, because I just opened the first page and I'm right there. As I've said, many books can be so demanding to read, and it's like with Madame Bovary, I don't have to exude any effort to like keep the pages turning. It's a little bit like watching a movie, and actually there's some theory on how Flaubert actually wrote in a filmic way. They use like things in film, like parallel editing, that Flaubert did before film was even invented. So it's weird, like it feels a little bit like watching a movie, reading the book. I just always feel like this book meets me halfway. The pacing is so impeccable, and at the same time, like that doesn't mean that it's not eloquently written at all. Like quite the opposite, actually. Flaubert was obsessed with style and with finding le mot juste, the right word. He would like labor over a certain word for like ever. So he was so perfectionistic in that way that it's almost a surprise we have the book at all, because he was a writer for all his life and we only have like a handful of books. This is a page of Un Cœur Simple. It's a like short story he's written.
Wow.
And the print isn't very good, but you can see how it's like, this is the original text and then he just like crosses out, edits back in. It's like very messy. He said, actually, I have a quote written down by him. Quote, "I'm irritated by my own writing. I am like a violinist whose ear is true, but whose fingers refuse to produce precisely the sound he hears within."
That's good.
Isn't that so frustrating? Like, I feel like that's one of the greatest frustrations as a writer. Like, you can come up with these things in your head and you can like imagine what the book would be like, and then it's like just doesn't translate to the writing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's maybe why Hemingway chose it, like to show the paradox of being a writer. Like, it's so extremely labored, but then it has to feel easy to read. It should flow.
Good writing seems like it's almost invisible at times. The best writers make it look so easy, and then it's so frustrating to, I feel, for a lot of aspiring novelists, to try to write and produce the effect and know that they're failing. But I also think that awareness is a really good sign for a lot of aspiring novelists, because it's like, if you know where it's falling short, you can at least, like, that's half the battle,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can kind of correct it.
It's the same way with good lecturers. There are some professors, they can talk about whatever they want, even if it doesn't interest me. It's because they're so good at packaging it and at making it interesting. I love that. But anyways, the amount of rigor and attention Flaubert put into this novel really heightened the status of the novel as a whole, because, as you would know, like, when the novel first came out and lots of people started reading, it wasn't actually a genre that was very highly viewed. It was more like, well, you're reading trashy
Right,
literature, right?
exactly.
Those novels, you're like reading these stories, and was much more highly esteemed to read poetry or something like that, or epics, or
Yeah, it's true. It's the same thing was going on in England at the time when Jane Austen was writing, even before that. I mean, she has this moment in her short novel, Northanger Abbey, where she actually defends the novel as a mode of representing human experience. And I do feel as though the writers like Hemingway, who were in the worldwide modernists, were elevating the novel as a status of, like, this is a very serious genre.
Yeah.
It's probably the genre of the modernist movement, I'd say, more than poetry was for them, even though the modernist movement produced really great poetry.
Yeah, true. Complete side note, but isn't there also in Northanger Abbey a main character that is a little bit like Madame Bovary, that in that she's, I don't know, at once, okay.
Naive or...
Yeah, because my comparative literature professor once talked about the same character coming back time and time again. Like Don Quixote, the way Don
Yes.
Quixote is,
Yes.
that's how Madame Bovary
Yeah.
is. She like reads a lot, and then she has all of these ideas of like what the world should be so exciting, and I'm just, like naive and all of these things. And then actually he said, yeah, Madame Bovary is like that.
Catherine Morland
From Northanger Abbey.
Yeah, exactly.
And The Idiot by Dostoevsky is like that too.
Oh, interesting. I had
Yeah.
considered Dostoevsky's Idiot as being within that same category, but absolutely, kind of the fool, or a type of a fool character.
Yeah, so as we said, Emma Bovary, she really wishes to live, that her life could look like those lives that she reads about in the books, and kind of, she idealizes everything and wants things to be beautiful. There's like, and I can relate, there's this scene in the book, I think her husband feels like, wow, you're so depressed all the time, why don't you take up a new hobby like horse riding or something? And she's like, no, I don't feel like that, I don't want to like go horse riding. And then he says, but you could pick out some nice clothes for that. And she's like, yeah, okay, no, that sounds great.
Oh my.
Translation recommendation.
Oh yeah.
There are a lot of good translations into English, actually, of Madame Bovary. I, for my French literature course, settled on Geoffrey Wall, available in The Penguin. That's a really good translation. And if you're going to read it in German, you have to get the Elisabeth Edel translation. It's pretty new. It's amazing. I listened to a talk of hers once. Like,
Oh, really?
she was here.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Did you get her signature, or is that an American thing?
I did not get a signature, but it was cool because she was like, well, people ask me all the time, Flaubert has been translated 10 times into every language. Why do you do it again? And she was like, yeah, but she just noticed some things. Like if you really know an author, he had this fetish, for example, for black or leather boots or something. Like they come back a lot in his novels. And then he would write this scene, again, filmic, you know, where he would like scan down what this woman looked like, and it would always end with the letter.
The shoes?
Yeah, with the boots. And that would be like the last word of the sentence or the paragraph. And she was like, none of the other translations did that because the sentence structure in German is just different, you know.
Interesting.
So she would like
so great.
play around with like 15 different iterations of how you can structure a sentence so that the boot is actually the last thing. And I just thought that was so inspiring. I'm like, wow.
You know, it makes me wonder if maybe Hemingway just read a bad translation of Dostoevsky, and like maybe it's the translator's fault for not doing this. But that's a really good point.
I mean, that is a complete rabbit hole to go into, but there are some hyenas translations out there of like every book. It's crazy. Yeah. Because translation used to be not like a copyrighted thing. It wasn't the case that like a publishing house would hire a translator. It was just like whoever was fastest was gonna get his book out first. And of course, if you're really fast, you're making a lot of stupid mistakes.
Wow, that actually informs a lot about some of the early translations I've read and why they're like just not as good as some of the late 20th century ones.
Yeah. Now translations tend, I mean, it's a rule of thumb, but they tend to get better. As I was saying, I read it at a pivotal moment in my life because I feel like I was heading down Madame Bovary Boulevard. Not with the infidelity, but with chasing emotional highs. You know what I mean? So here's a quote that I think describes her really well. It's about love, but even though this quote is about love, that's kind of how she thinks about everything. So, love, she thought, must come suddenly, with great outbursts and lightnings, a hurricane of the skies, which falls upon life, revolutionizes it, roots up the will like a leaf, and sweeps the whole heart into the abyss.
That's beautiful.
What's your third pick, Adam?
Well, this probably won't be a surprise, but I chose the anthology of poetry that he had on the list. The Oxford Book of English Verse, published in 1900 and edited by Arthur Quiller Couch. This was, okay, so it's interesting that he would put a poetry anthology on there for aspiring novelists. And this particular anthology was the one that the soldiers took with them into the trenches of World War I. There was another edition with lovely Indian paper that was really durable, and so this book was passed around in the trenches. And one of the exciting things about it is that it collects poetry from the 13th century all the way up to the year it was published, 1900.
So does it have translations of the Old English?
They did not modernize the Middle English of the anonymous Middle English verse, left that in for the most part. But it was all English poetry, so it wasn't world poetry.
No, but yeah, did they translate the English? That's what I meant. Because
no,
like
just had
English from the 13th century, are you gonna just understand that?
Yeah. Summer is coming in. Spring is coming.
That's German.
It's right. It's very especially the Midland dialect. But it was in there. People read it, and what's amazing is, and I think that this contributed to the modernist movement on a whole, was that it gave modernist poets something to work with besides what just came in the prior century.
Yeah.
So like the Romantics were reacting against the 18th century. The Victorians in a way were responding to the Romantics. The modernists were responding to the Victorians, yes, but they were also really invested in returning to the classics and salvaging some of the great stuff that they found in traditions of the past, including the medieval period. So Wilfred Owen brings back the sonnet in his anti-war poems, and you see the modernist poets experimenting with this larger mashup of English poetry, the long history of English poetry. I think that's really exciting.
That is really exciting. It's like the book is collecting and acting like a collage for
Yes.
English poetry, and the modernists took that and they're also making collages. Right?
And they're discovering new things. And that's
Yeah.
out of that, making those collages, out of the new poetry that otherwise they hadn't really been exposed to. For example, John Donne, whom T.S. Eliot both and Ernest Hemingway really loved, up to the 1900s, no one really read John Donne. He was not very much taught, mainly because in the 18th century, with Joseph Addison and Samuel Johnson, they looked back at the metaphysical poets, John Donne, George Herbert, Edmund Waller to some extent, Andrew Marvell. They believed that they were just showing off. They were just trying to show how smart and witty they were in their poetry, and that the poetry is just really cute and it's not something to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
That was Johnson's take, and that was the take for the longest time until T.S. Eliot and other modernists started going back and said, well, wait, what the metaphysical poets actually have to offer is something not only beautiful but intellectually serious.
Mm-hmm.
And Hemingway, I feel, discovered the same thing in John Donne.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to read just a small poem by John Donne. But before I do, I want to read a poem of Hemingway's.
Yeah, I did not know that Hemingway wrote poetry.
Yeah, he's not known for his poetry.
No.
His prose is much better than his poetry, in my opinion.
Okay.
However, it's very interesting to see him, and he did write poetry throughout his life. He wasn't so dedicated to it as he was to the novelist form, or the novel form, or the short story form. But this speaks to that post-war feeling that the modernist movement really carried forward. Its critique, this deconstruction of inherited ideals, like
the
nationalism.
disillusionment.
Disillusionment.
After the war.
Exactly, yeah. So Hemingway's poem, Chaudenar, the Fields of Honor, it's very brief, but it's biting. Soldiers never do die well. Crosses mark the places, wooden crosses where they fell, stuck above their faces. Soldiers pitch and cough and twitch. All the world roars red and black. Soldiers smother in a ditch, choking through the whole attack.
Mm.
It's heartbreaking because right there in that last line, he's referencing some of the innovations that came with the First World War, chemical warfare. And that's also what Wilfred Owen mentions in his sonnets against the war, or against the glorification of war. And Hemingway is doing that as well. So it's interesting to see, it's really cool to see Hemingway participating in this new strain of poetry that many of the post-World War I poets get the credit for.
Yeah. And sorry, I just got stuck on the all the world wars red and black, because the next book I'm going to talk about is called The Red and the Black.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if he might be influenced by that.
Yeah.
So the John Donne poem, those of you who love Hemingway, we're going to recognize this. Maybe you already know that one of his famous novels was taken from a line of John Donne. And here's the short poem by Donne. No man is an island entire of itself. Each is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. If a clod be washed away by the sea, Europe is the less, as well as if a promontory were, as well as if a manor of thine own or of thine friends were. Each man's death diminishes me, for I am involved in mankind. Therefore, sin not to know for whom the bell tolls, for it tolls for thee. I think it's important that he placed on this list a book of poetry. It's as though he's saying every novelist needs to have an ear for sound and sense, for rhythm. And of all the beautiful excerpts that you've just read, all of those authors have that ear for the sound and sense and for the rhythm. And Hemingway did too. And I think that's part of why he recommended this book for the aspiring novelist.
Yeah, that's it. Like, don't just read in your genre, because
Yes.
I feel like the line between prose and poetry is kind of murky anyways, and there's a lot to gain from just learning about stresses and everything that makes up poetry.
Exactly.
YouTube.com/close reading.
Like and subscribe. One more thing, the book now has gone through 3 editors, and the latest editor is Sir Christopher Ricks. He has edited the Oxford Book of English Verse. Comes with a fantastic preface, fantastic introduction. I really love the criticism of Sir Christopher Ricks. I think that he is among the 4 greatest English critics to come out of the 20th century, and he's still writing.
He's a sir.
He was knighted for his criticism. I believe it was for his criticism for which he was knighted. I'm not entirely sure.
That's amazing.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah. Do you feel like if someone was getting into poetry, that would be a good anthology to get and live through?
Absolutely, yeah. I think an anthology that at least begins in the medieval period and then carries you forward to contemporary poetry will really give you a sense of the different variations and the styles and the experimentations. I feel like you study a good anthology, you just read through it, replace your scrolling with reading poetry.
Yeah.
Then you'll get a sense for your own taste. Your own taste will be informed by that. So I think this anthology is absolutely wonderful. I've taught it before, and it just teaches beautifully, and I think it's great for self-study as well.
Oh, that's amazing. Because just single volumes, books of poetry can be really expensive.
Right.
I bought this beautiful edition of Ariel by Sylvia Plath. It was 27 euros. It's beautiful, it's fine, but that's a lot of money for very little text.
Is it the beautiful red covered one?
Yeah, they redid the original, the edition when it first came out. They remodeled. It's I love having it. It's fine. I also love paying 27 euros for it. But it's if you're trying to become a reader of poetry, better get that anthology, because you can probably get it secondhand for 10 euros or something, and then you can first at least get an idea of where you want to kind of deepen.
Exactly. All right, so what's your third and final pick?
My third pick is Le Rouge et le Noir by Stendhal. I have to be really honest and say that I haven't actually read the book, but it strikes me that a lot of the books that are on Hemingway's list, and here I come back to my theory, what strings all of them together, is that they are about interpersonal and intrapersonal conflict.
Right.
And they always go back and forth, the characters always go back and forth between reason and desire.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Passion and thinking and feeling. And Stendhal is often talked about as the creator of the psychological novel. Le Rouge et le Noir the red and the black came out in 1830. And 19th century literature seems to be really obsessed with that theme of a young man who is trying to make his way up the social ladder, and is very cunning, but then he also has all these desires that kind of lead to his downfall. So he's trying to, that. And Bel Ami by Guy de Maupassant would be a really good one. I feel a lot of people know that one. He makes his way through the social and political ranks through manipulation, kind of. And ultimately, the strong, uncontrolled feelings always override, or always, I don't know, I haven't read Le Rouge et le Noir, but they usually override the better judgments of the characters and lead to their downfall. It's not my favorite plot line, I guess, but it's fine. But really why I think it's so what it shows us is this tension between passion and ambition. And I once heard the saying that if you want to create a great character in literature, you have to give them a want that is conscious and a need that is subconscious.
That's good.
And then you can write it out for hundreds of pages to work that tension out. Just a total side note, but all of the 3 books that I have talked about, they have subtitles that usually don't make it into the translation.
Really?
So Le Rouge et le Noir is actually called Le Rouge et le Noir, Chronique du 19e siècle. So Chronicles of the 19th century. Buddenbrooks has the subtitle of Downfall of a Family. And Madame Bovary is Mœurs de Province, So manners of the province or something, like what people do on the countryside when they're bored.
Yeah.
They get into affairs, kind of crowdsourcing. If anyone has observed that too, that they don't seem to also translate the subtitles.
I will say that I did not know about that. Wasn't aware of the subtitles of Buddenbrooks or The Red and the Black.
But I think it's a great read for understanding the 19th century, like that big height of industrialism, and like everyone can make it, and there are not that many rules yet, and it's but also there's not really a sense of psychological well-being or mental health or something like that. So people are still really in these like oppressed systems, and it all gets real messy real quick. It makes for a good plot. But I see some parallels to Buddenbrooks in that regard. But when I looked at the list, we don't have it now, but the actual handwritten list by Hemingway.
Yes.
The book looks a little bit like an afterthought. Like it looks like it's squeezed in. I brought a quote. If you want to.
I would love to hear it. Yeah, please.
I picked it out especially for you. In truth, these wise people exercise the most tedious despotism. It is what is behind this nasty word that makes residence in small towns impossible for those to have lived in the great republic we call Paris. The tyranny of opinion, and what opinion, is as stupid in the small towns of France as it is in the United States of America.
I have something to say, but I don't think I can say it. Beautifully captures the alienation that one feels in going back to the small town.
Okay, should we talk about the rest of the list?
Should we go through the list?
Go through the list.
Let's do that. Where is my list? The grand reveal.
Let's. People can just skip forward to the timestamp and like not no.
Yeah, somebody will be in the comments. It's like just get right
list.
here. Yeah. Here's the list at timestamp 34. I sometimes delete those.
Wow.
I want them to watch the whole video. The attention economy is so bad already. You're not even reading me. All you have to do is listen and on double speed. Yeah.
Someone once commented under my video, I'm so glad double speed exists.
Wow, rude. So the first two are short stories by Stephen Crane. The Blue Hotel and the Open Boat.
Next we have Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert and Dubliners by James Joyce.
Number 5 and 6 are The Red and the Black by Stendhal and Of Human Bondage by Somerset Maugham.
Then we have 2 Leo Tolstoy novels, Anna Karenina and War and Peace.
Then we have Buddenbrooks by Thomas Mann and Hail and Farewell by George Moore.
Next up, The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky and the Oxford Book of English Versed.
I see what you did there. Get 30% off with the code below. Next we have The Enormous Room by E.E. Cummings and Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte.
And lastly, Far Away and Long Ago by W.H. Hudson and The American by Henry James. All right, so as a last little point for the 3% of people who are still watching, we thought we would add our own recommendation to the list.
That's right.
So what is a book that we think is an essential read for an aspiring author? You want to go first?
Sure. I'm choosing Jane Austen, and it's either Emma or Mansfield Park. I feel like the Mansfield Park would go really well with Buddenbrooks, but I'm going to choose Emma because of dialogue. And I think that all of these novelists that he has on the list, at least the ones that I've read, are really masters of dialogue.
Yeah.
And it's such a hard thing to do as an aspiring writer, is to master dialogue. It's so hard. But Jane Austen is so witty. She has the razor-sharp wit of John Donne. She can be laconic and terse like Hemingway. She is a mastermind of dialogue. So many meanings are always implied or interwoven in some of just the one words or phrases that her characters will use. And so I think Emma's a great example of that. And so I would put Jane Austen's Emma.
That's beautiful. I always think that it must be the most difficult thing to write a play of theater because you only have dialogue. I'm like,
right.
how do
Yeah.
like how?
Stage directions, which but
Yeah, but I have so much respect for that, because with a novel you can kind of do everything. In theory, at least, you can kind of do whatever you want. And with poetry, you don't necessarily need like a big plot or anything, but with a theater, you really do. And
that's right. It like combines the plot of a novel, the narrative technique of a novel, with the density of poetry, verse poetry, I suppose.
Yeah, it can be.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that, but yeah. Okay, so I'm really curious. What is your recommendation for an aspiring novelist?
Well, anyone who has watched my channel is not going to be surprised by that, but I have picked In Search of Lost Time by Marcel Proust. This is just the first edition. I mean, the first volume of 7. And it's my favorite work of literature of all time. Yeah, it's just even a completely different category than all of the other books I like.
Wow.
It is the reason I wanted to start studying literature. I was just like, what on earth is going on here that is so beautiful? The reason I picked it is because it just shows how extremely granular perception can be, and how a novelist can see what no one else sees and slow time down a lot and then like put the littlest changes in feelings and attitude into writing. And it really, I haven't read all 7 volumes. I don't know, it's a big project, but I feel like this book really, it changes me when I read it. It's like I walk through the world a different person. It really does. It's crazy. And a lot of people say that. They're like, the Proust project, they take like a year or 2 to only read Proust. And I have a lot of those people on my channel because I make... and they send me like heartwarming emails of like Proust projects they've done. It has really ruined me for anything super fast-paced.
Interesting, right? Yeah.
Like, this is such a weird comparison, but a few months ago or last year, I watched this mini-series on Netflix that is called Death by Lightning, and it's about the assassination of James Garfield, one of the 2 American presidents who were shot, I think. I mean, it's a mini-series, so the format is different, but over 4 episodes, it just shows the lead up to that shooting. So the person who shot him, he was like a real fan of James Garfield, and he had what we would maybe nowadays call like a parasocial relationship with him. Mm-hmm. You know, he thought he really helped him to fame and that he was owed something for that. And he was like, well, he's gonna help me out when I need help, you know. And at some point, that person realized, oh, that's not the case, and he kind of flipped, and then eventually he shot him. And it's a good miniseries actually, but I was like, wow, that like subtle psychological, like that obsession with a person turning into hate. Proust would have done that so wonderfully over like 700 pages, you know, and it would have been so good. It would have been so good. And then in the series, it's just a small moment. But I was like, yeah, whatever, it's nice to watch, but it's like, that's the real one.
So which English? I've actually not read this, and you're really selling it. So my to be read book stack is getting bigger here. What recommendation do you have? One for an English translation?
If you read German, read oh my gosh, what's her name? That Woman, and then it's revised by Lucius Keller. That's a good one. And then if you read English, I have Lydia Davis, and I like that, but people also really like... I'm going to put the name on the screen. I don't know, I can't remember his name. Yeah.
Here it is, folks.
Here it is. I would just recommend checking out both, like read a page or 2 and just see which one resonates more. Okay. Yeah, I'll just quickly admit that I don't actually really like Hemingway's writing.
Oh yeah, say that. No, yeah. So confession time.
Yeah, I don't actually really like Hemingway's writing. I feel like I don't really cancel me. I don't know. I haven't read that much, like A Short Story and then A Movable Feast. Yeah. It's that thing you said about his writing being very masculine.
It's a guy thing, maybe.
This maybe is a guy thing.
Yeah.
Do you like
I love.
Really?
I do. I really do love Hemingway's
Okay.
writing, but I totally get it. Like it's a little too. Boy, it's like you read enough Hemingway and you start to feel self-conscious about ordering anything other than straight whiskey when you go into a bar or something. Like, you know, like it's like the intensity of the masculine energy is a little bit like intense, I would say. The intensity is intense. But I do think he's a good craftsman when it comes to writing. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this. This was really fun. Thanks for collaborating.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun too.
There's more you can read about the friendship between Samuelson and Hemingway. They actually went boating together, and he actually wrote a book with Hemingway, A Year in Key West, in which he records some of his conversations with Hemingway. So, yeah, thanks for watching, everyone.
Yeah.
And until next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Hello, everyone. Hi. Here's for the clickbaity, like...
One more.
It's not quite that. It's more like, hello, everyone. Hi.
Welcome to this white space in the middle.
Welcome to Close Reading Poetry.
Actually, we're
not gonna.
very far distant reading. What is the
We are,
opposite
aren't
of
we?
close reading?
Distant reading.
It is, right?
Mhm. Good.
But wasn't that made up more ironically?
Kind of. Franco Moretti was the critic.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, all
I
right.
like that.
Okay, yeah. He doesn't like close reading. I like his work, but I don't think he would like mine.
I think you should do a spin-off channel.
Distant reading?
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Dis-
It's actually
distant reading pros.
distant reading bros. Yeah, digital.
Now bro pros, not bros.
Bros?
Pros.
Pros. That's what I said, I think. I didn't say bros.
Oh, I thought it.
Close
you have
reading
a bros
bros. I feel like Hemingway's definitely on the list there.
for the bros.
We would do Pynchon, it would be David Foster Wallace.
I open the first page and I'm right there. There's no looking up characters.
Sorry. I'm really curious what you're going to say because I have no idea.
Mhm.
Okay,
Wait, let me quickly check. My
you're curious too.
I'm curious.
If you're interested in the...
It's weird to be.
I'm done.
It's